Good day, everyone. This is Eric Maxwell with CleanSlate Technology Group. I am the BigFix Solutions lead, and I do want to thank you for joining us for another one of our series of webinars that we host here at CleanSlate. These free webinars are a good tool for our clients who are curious about exploring topics like BigFix Inventory, or as you may have attended in the past, the IBM License Metric tool, and also other complex IT subjects. As you know, the landscape of technology is constantly changing, so our webinars are a great way to help you stay up to date with the latest tech trends and everything you need to know about our industry. We do post webinar schedules and videos regularly to our website, which is www.cleanslatetg.com. So please be sure to check them out and register as you see fit. Today, our webinar is going to cover BigFix Inventory and dive deeper into some of your software usage, compliance, and reporting. I'll also be joined by Bay Van Horn. Bay is our BigFix Solutions Architect and will be presenting as well. So as I mentioned, BigFix Inventory, some of the subjects we're going to cover today is an overview of CleanSlate Technology Group, some of the different architecture with BigFix, the implementation of BigFix, as well as the support and some of our offerings with BigFix Inventory. So who is CleanSlate? CleanSlate Technology Group is an IBM Premier or Platinum Business Partner that provides dedicated practice groups focused on the delivery of IBM software solutions and professional services. So what does that mean? Well, you can think of CleanSlate as really being two separate groups that work cohesively here. We have the software side of things. That was where we've originated from and really has been our bread and butter the last about 17 years. Our only focus is on the software side is IBM software. We were IBM's third largest net new reseller in 2016 with around $65 million in revenue. We can sell the entire IBM software solution stack and do carry over 60 IBM sales and technical certifications. The other part of the side of the house is the professional services side, where we have built a highly skilled IBM consulting practice. Our skills and expertise really span across a majority of IBM software brand portfolio. Of course, we do have a dedicated asset management practice that supports our IBM software team, and we are recognized by IBM as the leader or go-to partner in software asset management with focus on the implementation, configuration, and managed services as well. So mandatory license requirements. What's an effective SAM or software asset management strategy? Well, we've broken this down into really 4 to 5 key parts: risk and costs, software management, your license position and ROI, and then and also kind of one main key ingredient. So risk and costs. Part of software asset management is obviously going to help you manage your software costs, manage your license compliance. It's going to identify your software inventory, kind of measure your usages, also help you with some of the complex licensing entitlements that's ultimately going to give you, an idea or position on what you're using and where you can really better spend your money there as well. Which takes us right into the ROI, where we can really help with software asset management strategy, and this should be part of your strategy, is aligning your organizational business requirements with the IT needs to deliver a maximum ROI and mitigate any risk. So essentially, make sure you're buying for what you need, not overspending, but of course not underspending and risk compliance, but really maximizing your ROI. There's also the software management. Managing your software purchases throughout the entire life cycle. That including purchase or acquisition, deployment of the licensing, the yearly maintenance and usage, making sure, as mentioned, you're renewing your licensing and support and maintenance as you need. Control and then proper disposal as you migrate away from a potential solution or decommissioned servers. How about doing that the proper way? And then ultimately producing that license position where you're maintaining a proactive license management process, avoiding risk, reducing asset management costs or software asset management costs, and then capitalizing on the usage of the invested software assets. And then finally, as we've highlighted in the middle of the screen, automation is key. It's going to really play a crucial role in software asset management and eliminating countless hours of manual inventory, monitoring, and maintaining software usage. Gathering all the spreadsheets, meeting after meeting, and kind of compiling all the data, automating all that is going to save hours and hours upon time and really produce more effective and accurate results. So here's some of the BigFix security solutions. Obviously, we've highlighted inventory, and we're going to touch on some of the things inventory does. Your software and hardware inventory, the usage and reporting of your software, correlation, catalog correlation, and then the ISO software tagging. With BigFix, though, the beautiful part about that is it really can help you cover two different business units, security and IT operations, because you have multiple other modules that are available with BigFix. It's kind of BigFix is the console, and then there's different modules there, such as inventory. There's also Lifecycle, patch management, some asset discovery, so third-party patching. There's patching a la carte. There's a solution as well, security compliance, also data protection, malware, firewall, data loss prevention as well. So a lot going on with BigFix beyond just inventory. I'll now turn it over to Bay to discuss with you some of the architecture and benefits of inventory.
Eric, thank you very much. So folks, on this slide, while this presentation is meant to be oriented towards inventory, as Eric indicated on the prior slide, BigFix is a platform. It's an infrastructure. On one side, inventory gathers the information we need to track against licenses. But part and parcel to that, you'll want to manage your software deployments, standard desktop installs, versioning control on middleware software, that type of thing. The two, inventory and BigFix Lifecycle, allow you to view that data from a central console, and therefore you're able to, from inventory, get versionings of deployed versions. You can determine from inventory, are those installs being used? If things are not being used, remove them, recover them, reuse the licenses, standardize on versions. That's the type of information that BigFix Inventory can give you. It does this by doing file system scans. It gathers requisite hardware inventory for needed software licensing costs, but that hardware inventory also allows you to view things like Microsoft patch levels, IP information, so forth and so on, that could be useful in just standard hardware asset management as well. Knowing files, knowing the software and process usage, knowing the inventory versions, then allows you to go back to Lifecycle or patch to do standardizations to determine where you have risks for non-standard installs, so forth and so on. So the features of inventory, the capabilities, as we stated on the prior slide, we do asset inventory and what software is installed on what systems. BigFix Inventory has a very robust catalog covering in excess of 8,000 software vendors with well over 80,000 different products. There is the capability of extending that catalog if you care to do so. If you have homegrown software that you wish to track, that is capable through the BigFix Inventory product. You have the capability of doing usage reporting. Going back to the statement I made before. In many vendors, you are charged when you deploy the software. If it's installed, it's found during an audit, you are liable for the license. So ask yourself, I have a big WebSphere application that's about to be deployed. I own WebSphere. I have, say, 2,000 units of unused WebSphere. My project's going to require 4,000. Do I go and buy 2,000 additional units of WebSphere, Or can I recover unused licenses and reuse them? BigFix Inventory gives you the insight to determine if you have unused software that you can remove, reuse, recover, and reuse the licenses on. The ISO tagging that's mentioned under the capabilities. This is, I won't say a new standard, but it is a standard that is being adopted newly. What that means is that vendors such as the Microsofts, the Adobes, the IBM, so forth and so on, that may have had unique product vendor tags before, don't care anymore. The ISO tags allow us to do discovery of software without having to extend a catalog. The ISO tags also, however, if products are instrumented, allow BigFix Inventory to report on things such as user-based licenses. Those are typically a very difficult thing to go out, maintain, validate, and control. I've already indicated that the catalog can be extended. Within the IBM portfolio, IBM subcapacity portfolio, there are a number of virtualization topologies. IBM supports those listed on the screen: VMware, Hyper-V, various Unix, KVM. There are cloud-based solutions. BigFix Inventory accounts for those as well, if you happen to be in an AWS, so forth and so on. You have the ability, with all this collected information, to view it all through centralized web reporting. There's a console. You can create your own ad hoc reports, filtering, sorting, so forth and so on. You have health and status and reporting to get a single point of glass on the health of all of this infrastructure that you're collecting information on. You have the ability through role-based user access to control who gets to see or influence what. You have the capability within BigFix Inventory to do sub-enterprise reporting. What division, what business unit, what organization is using what pieces of your software inventory, your entitlement inventory. You see a REST API for integration. If you have BigFix Inventory doing data collection and elemental reporting, you have the capability of extracting and feeding in through the REST API that data into other vendor products that might be more financial management oriented. So, inventory features or the benefits here. The question that always comes up, and actually came up on a customer call this morning, I think the statement made was, how can I go into an ELA, an annual software renewal, without knowing what I own? If you do not have an effective SAM strategy, if you don't have an effective SAM tool, then you risk overspending. Why? Because you have the fear of the audit. Having accurate information in a real-time perspective allows you to ensure that you are not buying that buffer, that you avoid overspending. Secondly, if you are maintaining a self-compliance, ongoing self-compliance, you're not going into those audits with high risk. You know where you are before you get to the audit, and there's a couple of benefits from that. Certainly one is just pure anxiety release. Let's face it, folks, nothing's pleasant about an audit. But the second is this. If I have my house in order because of ongoing compliance, then I will have a shorter audit process. Simple as that, which means I'm wasting more of my company's time and resources supporting that audit. And finally, assuming that I am doing continual compliance, I'm not only overspending, but I am controlling and creating accurate purchasing records. Validating and mitigating security risks. If you take the BigFix Inventory features, especially coupled with the other BigFix platform items such as the compliance module or the BigFix Inventory module, you are going to be able to identify where you have unauthorized installations, remove, recoup, and eliminate risks for data breaches and the like. You will have reports, usage reports, as we've indicated before, to identify where you can remove software, not only those unauthorized installs, but those unused installations. Why pay for a Microsoft version 8 or a version 2012 and a 2016 license if the 2012 is not being used? Get rid of it. But if it's being used, it will let you know who is using it. And finally, the management. If you don't have inventory, you can't manage it. You can't know who to contact. You can't begin to approach standardizations and the like. Mandatory licensing requirements. This is specifically related to IBM Passport Advantage customers. IBM specifically requires that if you are running, we call it subcapacity eligible software, software that is licensed based upon the processor value unit, that's PVU, or a cousin of it called the RVU, resource value unit, managed activated processor core. If your license is based upon the number of cores, then you are required, absolutely required, to install IMLT or BigFix Inventory. If you do not, the implication is you have to pay for the full rights of a box. Simply put, folks, if I have a 64-core server, I'm running WebSphere on one VM of a single core. I either get to pay for a single core by running BigFix Inventory or ILMT, or I have to pay for all 64 cores. Take a product like WebSphere Message Broker that might cost a good $1,000, $10,000 per unit. The difference between 100 units and 6,400 units at $1,000 a unit adds up very quickly. You need to get these products installed if you have an IBM subcapacity platform. The IBM licensing models, we extracted this out for those of you that are going, IBM has a lot of licensing metrics. Where do we find this stuff? And what am I looking forward to conceivably towards an audit? Simply put, the URLs down at the bottom, the first one, the IBM licensing definitions and details, is a link to a page from which this information was extracted, and it has details on all the information. IBM has somewhere around 120 different licensing metrics. These are the very common ones. From the user-based licensing, auth user, concurrent user, floating user are the common items. From the install capacity-based, client device, more workstation-oriented. The RVU, we've talked about one which is processor-based. There are actually about a dozen or so RVU submetrics. And then the capacity-based licenses. I've installed software somewhere. The details behind each of those, what are their measurements, what do they mean, so forth and so on, can be found on that first URL. The second URL, the licensing information docs, takes you into a product level, which would give you additional licensing information such as Message Broker. You do not have to pay for test dev systems. So on this slide, we see a typical deployment architecture of a BigFix inventory environment. You see the 4 levels there. The first level on the right side is the BigFix inventory server. That's where your software inventory license reporting, so forth and so on, will come out of. Below that, on the second row, or bullet number 2, is the BigFix root server. Now, the reason for the 2 servers is, as you recall from previous slides, BigFix is an infrastructure that supports various functionality. The BigFix inventory, the software license reporting, is one of those functionalities that has its own server. The base handles the content for not only BigFix inventory, but patch, lifecycle, compliance, so forth and so on. the content that's housed in that BigFix base server on level 2 is pushed down through the relays on level 3 down to the endpoints on level 4. The endpoints are where all of the magic happens in terms of collecting the software inventory, the hardware inventory, so forth and so on. This is a highly scalable architecture. There are customers running in excess of 200,000 endpoints, and that's because of the relays that sit in level 3. If you're a smaller customer with, let's say, 1,000 or so endpoints, this could certainly reside on a single VM or a small number of VMs. For those aforementioned larger deployments, you're looking at physical servers. Now, that architecture that we just looked at, this would be a typical project plan, if you will, or project discussion of a BigFix inventory implementation. Like any other project, and do consider this like any other significant project, you have to do planning. Whatever you don't do in planning, you'll do 10 times over on the back end. Now, the planning for BigFix inventory is not all that robust, but you definitely have to plan for your BigFix architecture, provisions and servers, deal with network security considerations for opening up change requests, so forth and so on. You may have integration between the BigFix inventory discovery and other asset financial management tools, CMDB type tools. That should all be captured in the planning phase. Once you've done your planning and your provisioning, then we get into the deploy and configure phase. We'll deploy the BigFix server, we'll deploy the BigFix inventory server, we'll deploy agents and relays as needed. We push out the content, that's the configure part that says this server needs to run these types of business activities, scans, so forth and so on. We get the scan data, the raw inventory and hardware data back, then we go through a validation process. Validation would be to do things like bundling and the like, and create this initial subcapacity report. Ultimately, out of this, we do want to create a baseline report, and that would encapsulate as well, comparing this against entitlements. And ultimately, understanding that your environment is continually changing, evolving. Servers are added, servers are decommissioned, applications are replaced, your software footprint changes. There is a maintenance cycle to this whole process. Now, looking at this from a slightly different perspective, if you will, focusing on that last aspect from the prior slide, the maintenance mode. You have these, more or less, if you will, 4 steps, 4 phases to just the maintenance process. I've shifted from a deployment phase to a steady state phase now. IBM publishes a catalog on a monthly basis. The catalog is the basis for all discovery. So you will have catalogs to import. You have some tables related to processing capacity for processor-based licenses. Those are those tables. You may have some patches or enhancements to the BigFix inventory product itself. That's the manage the platform and the maintenance mode. Some of that stuff might be weekly type of activities. Most of it will be monthly or quarterly type of activities. Anybody that's gone through an annual software review understands maintaining, or should understand maintaining, accurate software inventory. Review everything that's coming through. As you deploy new servers, as you deploy new software, make sure that it's being accounted for properly. And by that I mean, IBM, for instance, ships WebSphere not only with its own products, such as WebSphere Portal Server, where a WebSphere instance is free. That could apply as well, say, to an Oracle or a Lawson Financials deployment, running on top of a WebSphere where the third-party vendor is paying for the WAS license. That's the part that we drift into the third phase here, bundling. Making sure that we are accounting for the non-chargeable instances of software properly. That, by the way, also applies, if you will, to other vendors, not just IBM. Think of Microsoft. How many ways can you buy Word? It could be a standalone license. It could be a professional license. It could be an enterprise license, so forth and so on. So the software that gets consumed, the software that gets installed can be consumed by any number of different entitlements, and it is not unique to any single vendor or publisher. Once you have validated, refined, reviewed your inventory, you will want to do periodic reporting, if for nothing more than to ensure that you are not going above your entitlements, or that you are aware of when you are approaching or going above your entitlements. Going through this whole process does give you the ability to potentially avoid buying or funding maintenance for unused software. Bundling we just talked about, but folks, bundling is this in a nutshell. It is the art, the science, the black voodoo magic of counting or accounting for software that is free. Much software delivered to you, certainly by IBM, as well as other vendors. You pay for an entitled product, IBM Portal Server, or another favorite within IBM in their monitoring software would be IBM Tivoli Composite Application Manager. That's not what you install. That's what you bought. But what you bought included 14 pieces of software. That's what got installed. You have to tie that installed software back to the covering entitlement. Simple as that. That's what bundling is the relationship of what you installed back to what you bought. Within BigFix Inventory, IBM has this requirement to produce a subcapacity report on a quarterly basis, or have the ability to do that. You do need to maintain and track 2 years worth of these types of reports. The functionality is in the tool. This screen simply shows you that when you take this snapshot, on the left side, the report elements, that's the type of information that is being produced. You have the part number, so you can tie it back to your entitlements. You have the product names, you have peak values, so you know when your peak consumption over a quarterly reporting period was achieved. You have details down to the physical and virtual server as to where software was installed, what the relative charge was for that, so forth and so on, as well as the license consumption. That'd be the PVU, full and subcapacity, and or the RVU, full and subcapacity. As an interesting side note, what this audit report will show you is the value of running software in a subcapacity mode. Why run these products? So that you can achieve the lower pricing scales of subcapacity. This is a report that came directly out of BigFix Inventory. I've not imported the part numbers here, but that's what you see on the left column. You see a publisher column. The inference here is, while this report is very focused towards IBM, this is applicable to any vendor. You see the licensing metric. I see a metric quantity, and then I see 3 columns to the right that has some interest to me. The threshold could be your entitled quantities. It could be, say, 90% of your entitled quantities. It's a user-entered value. The delta is therefore calculated, derived, if you will, by taking the metric quantity, subtract from the threshold to figure out if you're over or under. And I've got a great visual here, if you will. I'm looking at the circled red box of what products have I exceeded my entitled capacity for. I also, to the right, see a small plot chart that gives me an idea as to when I went over or back under my entitled quantities or my threshold quantities. Finally, we at Preferred Partners, CleanSlate Technologies, produce a worksheet like this when we engage customers. to, if you will, take a formal look and approach at your entitlements, which we'll gather for you from the IBM websites, Passport Advantage sites. Take the deployment information coming out of BigFix Inventory and present this variance report to you. This information, this is a sample of what we do. This information can be derived as well, but this is external to the BigFix Inventory product.
Thanks, Bay. Now I'm going to talk a little bit more. This is Eric Maxwell again, and want to discuss some of our offerings here at CleanSlate Technology Group around BigFix Inventory deployment services. We have a number of offerings here, and oftentimes we actually customize these to really fill any holes or gaps within the process of BigFix Inventory, the reporting, the installation, the ongoing management of the inventory console and tool. So here's just a few of the most popular. So you have your quick start. The quick start is you purchase BigFix Inventory, and you're going to have a kind of a development or a handful of a small installer configuration of a handful of endpoints. Really just showing you the basics, how to get off the ground with the tool, obviously providing some knowledge transfer, some training throughout that process as well. And ultimately handing it over to repeat the same process to deploy it across the entire environment. There's also a health check of the environment. You may already have a BigFix Inventory. Maybe it's not reporting back accurately or not running as smoothly as you once thought. We can certainly help you with that and really give you an overall deployment assessment of your server environment and the agents, making sure those are all reporting. We can certainly give you tuning recommendations, recommended enablement. And then also at the same time, once your environment is tweaked or tuned on our part here, then obviously you translate that into the initial reporting as well. Moving on, the bundling and reporting, as Bay just mentioned, the Black Voodoo magic, as he said. This is probably the most popular. The bundling and reporting, I won't go over that again, but it does seem to be the most challenging, obviously, if you're not dealing with IBM software on a daily basis, as we are with a lot of the changes there. We do get recommendations for assistance, or I guess requests, I should say, for assistance to help with some of the baseline reporting and knowledge transfer, ultimately with that goal in mind of producing that quarterly report to give you an idea of not only your IBM entitlements, but also you have a publisher you want to track with BigFix Inventory as well. And then there's really the ongoing managed service offering. Essentially, once we establish that a baseline of the reporting around your software inventory, IBM and non-IBM, I'd say probably 80% of our customers, we have another engagement, the managed service offering. It's really a two-part offering, and we'll touch on that on the next slide, but it's the platform management and then the quarterly reporting there. So we can touch on all of these, and we, in the bottom left-hand corner, some of our SAM services, there's a kind of a full deployment and then the steady state license compliance assessments, see where you stand across your publishers as far as, being licensed correctly, any future planning and recommendations, making sure you're spending wisely and making informed positions as you purchase going forward, and any governance around your SAM or modeling and execution as well. So as I mentioned, roughly 80% of customers that we engage with on the initial purchase of inventory and deployment will want to take us up with the managed service offering. And as I mentioned, it was two parts. There's the IBM's software asset management, and then there's the platform management. So we've bulleted out here the software asset management, but kind of walking through it. Step one, is really the software rationalization services, mitigating any compliance risk, ultimately maximizing your ROI. What I mean by that is it's really a twofold effort. We want to take a look on that once we're reporting, once you have your baseline reporting, matching that up with your entitlements, looking for areas that if there is exposure or you're over deployed, addressing any of those gaps, be it a decommon servers or if there is a true up instance there, knowing about that. But at the same time, giving you an accurate license position so you're informed when it comes to renewals of your IBM contracts, Microsoft, Oracle, whatever publisher you're tracking with BigFix Inventory, making sure you're spending, and maximizing your return on investment. Through this managed service offering as well, we would help with reporting and validating any new hardware installations. Adding that to our baseline report that we would establish. Accounting for that, in our reporting as well. Same goes for any new software entitlement purchases. You purchase more software, obviously you have to have that tracked as well. We're going to keep working with you with that managed service to throw that in there and make sure we're accounting for everything. On the IBM side of things, maintaining updated PVU tables and part numbers lists. These are updated frequently, staying on top of these, making sure we have the latest and greatest from the IBM part numbers, if it's been renamed, if it's the part numbers new, if there's a different licensing metric. Staying on top of that is definitely a mission critical to having an accurate and healthy BigFix inventory environment. Any updated automating bundling efforts we can help with. We will perform and validate periodic audit reports. Want to make sure that we're putting proper tests in place to make sure we're getting the most accurate data. Obviously, we want to review the reporting with you, with internal asset managers, and file, put beside a report per your IBM compliance, and also staying in line with your other publishers as well on the reports. And then, certainly we can help. We are IBM software reseller, as I mentioned on the onset of the webinar today, so we certainly can help you manage the IBM relationship, rectify any software entitlement discrepancies, and reduce the chance of audit. The second part is really the day-to-day and month-to-month of the platform. Part one, the software asset management, we're going to make sure we're pulling those quarterly reports or as often as they are needed. Step two is that platform management. It's any patches, updates, fixes to the inventory console, quarterly review and application requirement to service any patches that come about, really the steady state of the environment. And of course, we'd have on-call operational support with CleanSlate for any BigFix inventory platform issues as well. So we've put together our kind of secret sauce for a complete software asset management solution offering. And this is the CleanSlate SAM solution model we have. It's really a 5-step process. Step 1 and 2 really go hand in hand. Step 1 is your subcapacity evaluation. It's the stuff that IBM requires you, the PVU and RVU that you're running in a subcapacity environment, tracking that, staying compliant within your passport agreement section 1.14. So that's really step 1, and really utilizing subcapacity licensing to, usually it's more for a cost perspective, managing that and making sure if you're already not utilizing that, using the best way there to use what you need and license what you need for in a subcap environment. Step 2 is the BigFix inventory deployment. So this is going to be for your non-PVU and RVU stuff. It's going to track the other plethora of metrics that IBM has. So it's going to include your subcapacity audit report, leveraging your subcapacity audit report, and automating your software discovery, and also identifying some of your other your non-PVU and RVU products. Step 3 is the BigFix managed service. As we touched on, it's a steady state of the environment, producing the quarterly reporting that you need. So that's really step 3. Once you have that secured and going in the right direction, it's the overall IBM SAM. I know I kind of touched on this on step 2, but they start to kind of blend together with what you're wanting to do, and that's obviously your non-PVU and making sure that you have your overall IBM picture in a healthy way and tracking your software asset management. And then step 5 is going to be the full picture. It's utilizing BigFix inventory, not just for IBM, but your other publishers as well. It's the full software lifecycle management, the continuous compliance and improvement. And I know we went through some of the steps early in the presentation with, kind of the best practices for off the installation, deployment, disposal of software as well. So that's really our 5 keys and 5 steps here for a SAM solution offering. So IBM Endpoint Manager, or BigFix, is going to be built to provide a robust endpoint management security features to allow security and IT operations to work in unison. So, the great part about the tool, we're specifically speaking to BigFix Inventory, which is going to kind of be on your operations side of the house here. But with the tool, there are other modules, there are other BigFix modules that you can really take advantage of. We talked a little bit about security and compliance, any type of third-party vulnerabilities, threat protection, incident response. The great part about BigFix is once you have the tool installed, the console installed, there's some configuration efforts and some licensing, but it does give the opportunity to really expand the environment with not a lot of work and take advantage of some of the other great modules that BigFix does have to offer. So we did put up a nice, really a pretty telling sign, and it's kind of more tied to the security compliance of what happens in some data breaches. So in general, software control and endpoint management, in today's IT environments, the lack of visibility and control of software and your infrastructure endpoints contributes to a greater risk of security breaches and high financial losses. So on average, global cost of a data breach costs organizations $3.8 million. We've all heard about them with a lot of your big box retailers and across the board of these data breaches happening. So protecting yourself, I should say, and knowing where to protect your environment is often going to be mission critical. The nice part is with a lot of your management of your endpoints with BigFix, we can certainly talk about other ways beyond just your inventory, BigFix inventory, to help you do that via the software security and compliance modules as well. But obviously knowing where your software is being utilized and the usage of it is going to go hand in hand with your compliance and usage as well. We've also thrown out here software control and endpoint management is really keyed over spending. As you can see, a license true-up on average is going to cost each organization around $1 million. It's a lot of money that can come out of nowhere if you're not expecting it. Oftentimes, there are, with all these compliance risks, 9.5 or 99 out of 100 times, an organization isn't maliciously trying to overuse a particular license. It's just really more of an educational thing and maybe not having as sound of a SAM practice internally in process, or internally SAM strategy, I guess I'm trying to say. So kind of knowing what you're using, what's out there, what's being deployed, and having a solution and strategy in place is really key. You can't control those assets you can't see, which I think is really telling. If you don't know they're out there, you don't have a strategy in place, that's usually where kind of some of the trip-ups happen with compliance across publishers. So some of the next steps, depending on where you're at, if you're evaluating BigFix, if you currently have ILMT to track your subcap, or if you're using a completely another tool, feel free to contact CleanSlate Technology Group with any further questions. If you'd like to see the tool in action, it's pretty neat. It's a clean tool and really shows you a lot of data that you can utilize to make a lot of business decisions. So feel free to reach out to myself. We've got our contact information at the end to schedule a personalized demo. We can certainly show you BigFix Inventory in action. If you want to talk, inventory, and we talked on some of the security compliance stuff, we can certainly do that as well. And then we can also help work with you to provide any estimates of, hey, what's this going to cost me? I'm looking to get a budget turned in. we want to purchase this, or we want to look into this and evaluate it and do proof of concept, certainly can help you with any estimates you need with software and installation prices and managing the console ongoing. I do want to thank you for your time today. Feel free to check back with us periodically at www.cleanslatetg.com. We do post our webinars and our webinar series and what's upcoming for month after month. So feel free to check out and join us again. I do thank you again. Again, my name is Eric Maxwell. My contact information is here on the last slide. Thank you.